It started out like any other week at school, the kind of week where nothing feels particularly special but you can sense something in the air, as though everyone else is in on a secret you haven't been told. At first, I didn't notice it, but by Tuesday morning I could tell that something was going on. People whispered in the hallways, phones lit up with notifications that were quickly tucked away when certain people walked by, and the usual groups of friends seemed more tightly knit than normal. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe everyone was just busy with exams or caught up in some random rumor, but by lunch I realized it was more than that. I sat down at the edge of the cafeteria table, sliding my tray next to Lena, who was scrolling through her phone with a smile so wide it looked like she couldn't contain it. Across from her, Hannah leaned in, whispering something that made both of them laugh and hide their screens. When I asked what was so funny, they exchanged quick glances and told me it was nothing, just a dumb video. But the way they closed their phones a little too fast made me wonder if I had accidentally stepped into a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. By Wednesday, the whispers had spread everywhere. In class, people leaned over desks, giggling about plans that I couldn't quite catch. I saw names scribbled in notebooks, snippets of conversations about outfits, rides, and music, but whenever I got close, the subject shifted. It was strange, like standing in the middle of a room where everyone speaks a language you don't understand, and even though you know they're not directly talking about you, you can't help but feel excluded. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself that maybe it was just a small get-together or a club event, nothing big enough to worry about. But by Thursday morning, it was impossible to ignore. Posters didn't go up, no official announcement was made, yet everyone seemed to know. Everyone except me. The more I tried to pretend it didn't matter, the heavier the silence felt when I walked into a room. It wasn't like I was invisible, people still said hello, still made small talk, but there was a distance now, a strange kind of politeness that made me feel like I was being handled, like no one wanted to slip up and reveal too much. That's when I noticed how carefully my friends avoided certain topics. At practice, Lena kept checking her phone instead of paying attention, while Hannah kept asking Emma if she had figured out what she was wearing yet. When I casually asked what was going on, Emma froze for half a second before laughing it off, saying she was just talking about clothes for the weekend. The lie was so obvious it almost hurt, and yet none of them said anything more. That night, I scrolled through my messages, half expecting to find some kind of invite waiting for me, maybe even a late one. There was nothing. No group chat mention, no private message, not even a vague hint. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, telling myself that maybe it was a small party and the invites hadn't gone around to everyone yet, but the pit in my stomach told me the truth. By Friday afternoon, the excitement in the air was undeniable. People carried extra bags with them, their voices buzzing with anticipation. Even teachers noticed the restless energy in the room, sighing as they tried to get us to focus. At lunch, the table felt more crowded than usual, packed with people I didn't always see sitting together. Plans were being made openly now, rides organized, snacks discussed, playlists argued over. I sat there quietly, waiting, hoping, certain that any second someone would turn to me and ask if I was coming too. But no one did. They talked around me, over me, through me, as though my presence was just a placeholder until the real party began. When the bell rang and everyone stood up to leave, I gathered my things slowly, listening to them chatter about directions and times, realizing that not one person had said a word to me. I walked to my next class feeling like the floor beneath me had shifted, like the world I thought I knew had been tilted without warning. It wasn't just that I hadn't been invited, it was that I was the only one who hadn't. And that, more than anything, made me wonder why. The weekend arrived faster than I expected, and while everyone else seemed caught up in a wave of excitement, I felt like I was standing completely still, watching the current pull them away from me. I tried to distract myself by going through my usual routine, running errands with my mom, catching up on homework, scrolling through my phone, but nothing worked. Every time I opened social media, I saw little breadcrumbs that reminded me of what I was missing. A picture of a new outfit laid out on a bed, a quick caption about "can't wait for tonight," an inside joke with laughing emojis that I didn't understand. By late afternoon, the tension was unbearable. I kept asking myself if I should text someone and bring it up directly, but the thought of typing those words, "Hey, is there a party tonight?" made my stomach twist. It felt too desperate, too obvious, like I would be confirming out loud what I was terrified to admit. So I stayed quiet. As the sun set, my phone lit up with more notifications, and this time I couldn't ignore them. Pictures started to appear, first in small bursts, blurry shots of people in cars, someone holding up snacks in a grocery store aisle, playlists posted with captions about setting the vibe. My friends weren't even trying to hide it anymore. The story I told myself, that maybe this wasn't a big deal, that maybe it was just a small gathering, crumbled right in front of me. This wasn't small. This was the event of the week, the thing everyone had been buzzing about, and I was sitting alone in my room watching it unfold like an outsider peering through a window. I closed my phone, tossed it across the bed, and stared at the ceiling, trying to calm the mix of anger and hurt boiling inside me. Why me? What had I done that was so wrong, so unforgivable, that I was the one person not included? The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. I had been part of this group for years. Sleepovers, study sessions, late-night calls, we had shared everything, and now it felt like they had all made a silent agreement to cut me out. My mind ran through every conversation I'd had recently, searching for a slip-up, a misunderstanding, something that would explain it, but nothing added up. It was like I had been erased, and nobody thought I deserved an explanation. By 10 o'clock, my curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up my phone again. The posts were relentless. The party wasn't just happening, it was thriving. Groups of people I didn't even know very well were there, laughing together in crowded rooms, music blaring in the background of every clip. I saw Lena posing with a drink, Hannah dancing on a chair, Emma waving at the camera like she was living her best life. And in the middle of one video, I caught sight of someone I absolutely didn't expect, Olivia. She wasn't even that close to our circle. She'd been hanging around on the edges this year, friendly enough but never really included. Yet there she was, front and center, laughing with my friends, like she belonged there more than I ever had. That moment hit me harder than anything else. If Olivia was invited, if people who weren't even part of the group were welcome, then my absence wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. And that realization felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of the party, faces lit up by string lights, people dancing, pictures being snapped that would no doubt flood social media for days. I kept wondering if they ever thought about me, if they noticed that I wasn't there, or if my absence was exactly what they wanted. By morning, I had almost convinced myself to move on, to act like it didn't matter, but when I logged onto my phone, the pictures were everywhere. The night had been documented in excruciating detail. Inside jokes filled the captions, laughter spilled through every video, and I couldn't escape the truth. They hadn't just left me out, they had made memories without me, memories I wasn't even supposed to know about. And then something strange happened. Buried in the flood of posts, I found one photo that stopped me cold. It wasn't a group shot or a blurry dance floor picture, it was a close-up, taken in the kitchen, where Lena and Hannah were standing together. Behind them, in the corner of the frame, was something that made my stomach flip. A sheet of paper taped to the fridge with a list of names written on it. At first, it was hard to read through the glare, but as I zoomed in, I could make out several of the names clearly. And right at the bottom, underlined in dark marker, was mine. My name. Crossed out. The image of my name slashed through with dark marker stuck in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. I stared at that blurry screenshot until my eyes burned, zooming in and out, convincing myself I wasn't imagining it. But it was there, plain as day, a list of people who were supposed to be at the party, and right at the bottom, my name carefully crossed out as if someone had decided, very intentionally, that I didn't belong. My hands shook as I held the phone, trying to make sense of it. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of mistake, Maybe they had a limited number of spots and crossed off a few names when the list got too long. But the more I thought about it, the less that theory held up. Olivia had made the cut. People I barely recognized from school had made the cut. I hadn't. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. I felt sick, replaying every memory of the week in my mind, wondering when the decision was made, who made it, and why no one had the courage to just tell me. What hurt the most wasn't even the exclusion itself, it was the fact that they all went along with it, pretending like nothing was wrong, letting me sit at the lunch table, laughing and planning around me as though I was invisible. I spent the rest of the weekend in a haze. I avoided posting anything on social media, terrified that someone would see how quiet I'd been and figure out I hadn't been there. My phone buzzed non-stop with updates from people still riding the high of the party, and I hated how badly I wanted to mute all of them. By Monday, I braced myself for the fallout at school. I walked in expecting whispers, awkward stares, maybe even pity, but instead, everyone acted like nothing had happened. They chatted about homework, about teachers, about the usual gossip, slipping in little references to the party but never directly addressing it in front of me. It was like they had agreed to play dumb, to pretend I wouldn't notice, and that made me even angrier. At lunch, Lena slid into the seat next to me like always, cheerful and casual, asking if I'd finished the math assignment. I nodded, forcing a smile, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand why my name was on that list and why it had been crossed out, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I studied her face, searching for any flicker of guilt, any sign that she knew I was onto her. She gave me nothing. Later that afternoon, I overheard something that changed everything. I was walking past the lockers when I caught Emma and Olivia talking in hushed voices. Olivia's tone was sharp, annoyed. "You should have told her," she said. Emma shushed her quickly, glancing around, but I had already frozen in place, my heart hammering in my ears. I strained to hear the rest. "If she finds out, it's going to blow up," Olivia whispered. Emma replied in a low voice I could barely catch, "It doesn't matter now, it's already done." I stood there, rooted to the spot, trying to process their words. They were talking about me, I knew it. Whatever it was, they had done it deliberately, and Olivia wasn't happy about it. For the rest of the day, I replayed the conversation over and over in my head. The party wasn't just about fun, it wasn't just some random event I hadn't been invited to, it was tied to something bigger, something no one wanted me to find out. And now, I had proof. That night, I couldn't resist anymore. I scrolled back through the pictures again, looking at the faces, the backgrounds, the little details people didn't think twice about posting. In one photo, I noticed Hannah and Lena standing with their arms around each other, grinning like they didn't have a care in the world. But just over their shoulders, on the counter behind them, sat a stack of envelopes. At first I thought it was junk mail, but then I zoomed in and my breath caught in my throat. Each envelope had a name written on it in bold marker, the same handwriting as the list taped to the fridge. They hadn't just sent texts or created a group chat, they had made physical invitations. And I never got one. I didn't even know people still did that, but there it was, undeniable evidence. Someone had gone out of their way to hand-select everyone who was supposed to be there. Which meant someone had also gone out of their way to exclude me. The question burned in my mind, keeping me awake for hours. Who crossed my name off that list, and why? By Tuesday morning, the unanswered questions were eating me alive. I couldn't look at my friends the same way anymore, not after what I'd overheard and what I'd seen in those photos. Every laugh they shared felt like it had a sharp edge, every casual word like it was covering up a secret I wasn't supposed to hear. I wanted answers, but every time I opened my mouth, the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I played along, pretending everything was fine, even though inside I was unraveling. During English class, I caught Olivia glancing at me. It was quick, a flicker of hesitation before she looked back down at her notes, but it told me something important. She knew I was suspicious. And if Olivia knew, then maybe she was the weak link. The one who might finally tell me the truth. That afternoon, I waited for her after school, pretending I was digging through my locker until most of the hallway had cleared. When she finally walked past, I fell into step beside her. "So," I said lightly, "how was your weekend?" She froze for a second, then forced a smile. "It was fine. Quiet. Yours?" Her lie was so blatant it almost made me laugh. "Quiet," I echoed, staring at her until she looked away. I didn't push further, but I saw the tension in her shoulders as she walked off, and that gave me a strange sense of power. She was hiding something, and she knew I was close to figuring it out. That night, I couldn't resist checking the photos again. I told myself it was obsessive, but I couldn't stop looking, combing through every detail like a detective searching for clues. And then I noticed something I hadn't before. In one of the group shots, taken outside in the backyard, there was a banner taped to the fence. The words were mostly hidden by people standing in front of it, but a few letters were visible. Enough for me to piece together that it wasn't just a random party. It was a celebration. But for what? My mind ran wild with possibilities. Birthdays, achievements, some inside joke I wasn't part of. But the more I thought about it, the more it hurt. Whatever the reason, it had been important enough for all of them to gather together, and important enough to make sure I wasn't there. On Wednesday, I finally broke. At lunch, while everyone was laughing about something on Lena's phone, I set down my tray and asked, as calmly as I could, "So, how was the party?" The table went silent. For a split second, nobody moved, and the air grew heavy, as if the whole cafeteria was holding its breath. Then Hannah spoke up, her voice higher than usual. "What party?" she said, forcing a laugh. "We just hung out a little. Nothing big." The lie was so obvious it made my skin crawl. I looked around at their faces, Emma avoiding my eyes, Lena biting her lip, Olivia staring at the table. They all knew I'd seen through them. But no one admitted it. Not one of them had the decency to tell me the truth. I left the table without another word. That evening, as I sat in my room, I thought about the list again. My name crossed out in bold marker. It hadn't been random, and it hadn't been careless. Someone had made that decision on purpose. But who? The answer came sooner than I expected. Late that night, my phone buzzed with a notification. A private message. I opened it and felt my heart skip. It was from Olivia. No greeting, no explanation, just 3 words, "You deserve to know." My hands shook as I typed back, asking what she meant, but she didn't reply right away. Minutes dragged into an hour, and I started to wonder if she'd lost her nerve. Then finally, another message appeared. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I told them it was wrong, but they wouldn't listen. They said it was better if you didn't come. My chest tightened as I read the words over and over. Better if I didn't come? Better for who? Better for what? Before I could even form a response, a third message came through. Ask Lena. She's the one who crossed your name out. The words on my screen blurred as I stared at them. Ask Lena. She's the one who crossed your name out. It felt surreal, like the ground beneath me had suddenly given way. Lena. Out of everyone, I never expected her. She was the one I trusted most, the person I thought I could count on no matter what. And yet, according to Olivia, she was the reason I had been excluded. I wanted to dismiss it, tell myself Olivia was lying or stirring up drama, but the image of the list came back into my mind, my name slashed through in bold marker. Someone had to have done it. And if it really was Lena, then everything I thought I knew about our friendship was a lie. I spent the night tossing and turning, rehearsing what I would say, wondering if I even had the courage to confront her. But by morning, my anger outweighed my fear. I couldn't go on pretending. At lunch, I sat across from her and waited until the conversation died down. Then, in a voice that was sharper than I intended, I asked, "Why did you cross my name off the list?" The entire table went silent. Forks clinked against trays, then stopped. Lena froze, her eyes flicking up to mine, and for a moment I saw something flash across her face: shock, guilt, maybe even fear. "What are you talking about?" she said finally, her tone too light, too fake. "Don't play dumb," I shot back. "I saw the picture. My name was there. Crossed out. And Olivia told me it was you." The mention of Olivia's name made Emma choke on her drink, and Hannah muttered something under her breath, but I didn't break eye contact with Lena. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, like she was struggling to come up with an excuse. Finally, she said quietly, "This isn't the place." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she gathered her tray and walked out of the cafeteria. I hesitated only a second before following her. We ended up outside near the back of the school, away from everyone else. She leaned against the wall, crossing her arms, avoiding my gaze. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking despite how hard I tried to keep it firm. "What did I do?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she sighed, running a hand through her hair. "You didn't do anything," she said softly. "That's the point." I stared at her, confused and angry. "Then why leave me out? Why make sure I was the only one not invited?" Lena finally looked at me, and her eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite place: guilt, regret, maybe even sadness. "Because it wasn't just a party," she said. "It was complicated. You weren't supposed to see any of it. You weren't supposed to know." My heart pounded in my chest. "Know what?" She shook her head, biting her lip. "It wasn't my decision alone. We all agreed. I was the one who had to cross your name out. I thought it would be easier that way." "Easier?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Do you have any idea what it felt like? Seeing everyone there, watching you all pretend nothing was happening, like I didn't even exist?" "I know," she whispered, and for the first time, her voice cracked. "And I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. But it was safer if you weren't there." The word safer stopped me cold. Safer? A party wasn't dangerous, it wasn't life or death, it was music, laughter, food, people dancing. What could possibly make my presence unsafe? "What are you talking about?" I demanded. Lena looked at me then, really looked at me, and I could tell she was weighing something, debating whether to finally tell me the truth or keep the secret buried. After what felt like forever, she whispered, "It wasn't about the party. It was about you. If you had come, you would have found out." My stomach dropped. Found out what? But before she could answer, the bell rang, echoing across the courtyard, and she pushed off the wall, walking quickly back toward the building. "I can't explain here," she called over her shoulder. "Just let it go. Let it go." As if I could. As if I hadn't spent days feeling like an outcast, questioning everything, desperate for answers. I watched her disappear into the crowd of students, my mind racing with possibilities. Something had happened at that party, something they were all keeping from me, and Lena had just confirmed it. Whatever it wasn't just about fun or friendship, it was bigger, darker. And the terrifying part was, I had no idea what I was about to uncover. I couldn't stop replaying Lena's words in my head. "It wasn't about the party. It was about you. If you had come, you would have found out." They haunted me through every class, through every meaningless conversation, until I could barely hear what anyone was saying. By the time school ended, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to know the truth. I found Lena by the parking lot, standing with Emma and Hannah. When she saw me walking toward them, her face went pale, and I knew she was afraid of what I might say. I didn't care anymore. "No more games," I said, my voice louder than I intended. "I want to know. What was so important that you had to erase me from your life for one night?" Emma muttered something about leaving, but Lena stopped her, taking a deep breath. Fine, she said, her voice shaking. But you're not going to like it. We moved to a quiet corner of the lot, away from everyone else. Lena looked at me for a long time before finally speaking. The party wasn't just a party, it was for you. At least, it was supposed to be. My heart skipped. For me? What do you mean? It started as a surprise, Lena said quickly. We were planning it for weeks. Everyone chipped in, everyone kept it secret. The idea was to make it special, something you'd never forget. That's why you didn't hear about it. We wanted to surprise you. My chest tightened with a strange mix of relief and anger. All that pain, all that doubt, and it was supposed to be for me? But then why wasn't I there? Why was my name crossed out? As if she could read my thoughts, Lena's eyes filled with tears. 2 days before the party, someone found out something about you. And they decided it would ruin everything if you showed up. My throat went dry. Found out what? She hesitated, glancing at Emma and Hannah, who both looked like they wanted to disappear. Finally, she whispered that your dad is dating Ms. Turner. For a moment, I didn't process what she'd said. Ms. Turner. My math teacher. The one everyone whispered about, the one half the school secretly talked about outside of class. When it clicked, I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. That's why? I asked, my voice trembling. Because of who my dad is seeing? Lena nodded, her face crumpling. We found out right before the party. Olivia overheard something at the grocery store, she saw them together. Word spread fast. Everyone was freaking out, making jokes, and then someone said if you showed up, it would be awkward, or you'd be humiliated, or people would push you to explain. They didn't want that to happen at your own surprise party. I couldn't believe it. My closest friends had decided that instead of telling me the truth, instead of letting me face it, they would erase me from the night completely. They thought they were protecting me, but all they did was make me feel unwanted, betrayed, and alone. You don't get to make that choice for me, I said, my voice breaking. You had no right. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Do you know what it felt like, watching everyone else laugh and dance while I sat at home thinking I was nothing to you? Do you? Lena's lip trembled. We thought we were sparing you. No, I cut her off. You weren't sparing me. You were sparing yourselves from having to deal with it. And you didn't just take away the party, you took away my trust. That's not something you can give back with an apology. None of them said a word. For once, the silence was theirs to carry, not mine. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, my thoughts racing. The truth had come out, but it didn't feel like closure. It felt like a wound that would take a long time to heal. That night, lying in bed, I thought about how quickly everything had shifted. One secret, one decision, and suddenly I was the outsider in my own circle of friends. But as painful as it was, I also realized something important. I didn't need a party to prove I belonged. If people could so easily erase me from their plans, then maybe they weren't my people after all. Maybe the real twist wasn't that I'd been left out, it was that I'd finally seen the truth about who was worth keeping in my life. And that realization, as heartbreaking as it was, gave me something I hadn't expected: freedom.